Hi, I'm Judy Herman, and I help leaders and families create connection beyond conflict. You are here because you might have received a notice earlier today about how to improve your relationships with some communication tips, and the communication I'm going to explain is how to dialogue. Just for a disclaimer, I am a relationship therapist. Actually, I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Tennessee, but let me clarify, this is not a counseling session, nor is it a substitute for professional counseling services. But hopefully you can walk away today and have some tips that you can use right away for your relationship. And this is actually the first time I've invited people and let them know that I was going to be here. So if I see that there's a message from you, I might have to look down a little bit, but let me share some content with you first, and then if you have any questions, please go ahead and write those in the messages, and I will see if I can talk about them and answer your questions. First of all, what is dialogue? Dialogue is so different than just regular communication. It's different than persuasion, or you probably remember in high school, perhaps you were on the debate team. It's not debate. It's not powering over another person to convince them of your viewpoint. What dialogue is basically, it is a way to communicate that makes that space between two people emotionally safe. And so when two people are slowing down long enough not to be reactive, but taking deep breaths and having a serious interest in learning about the other and just making that space safe so that you can grow and learn, that's what dialogue is basically. So to review, or maybe some bullet points. I actually have a handout, so if you want this, I can send this to you. Dialogue is empathic communication between two people in which both come away from that communication feeling deeply heard and understood and validated. And don't we all want that? Again, dialogue is not persuading or convincing another person to believe and think and act the way we want them to, but it's being able to learn differently from them and their differences. So it's basically the purpose of dialogue. You're probably thinking, well, why in the world would you want to dialogue? What use is that? It's basically to connect with yourself, because you might learn some things about yourself and you can learn from the other person. Dialogue helps increase our self-awareness and our growth. And that's why we're in relationship, is because if we're living by ourselves, and perhaps you are living by yourself, perhaps you've been a single person for a long time, I get that. It's important to have some significant relationships in your life, because it's relationships that are mirrors to us and our blind spots, especially the deeper relationships. And that's what dialogue does. Dialogue helps increase our own self-awareness and growth, and it just gives us insight and wisdom. Dialogue, actually, I know everybody's experienced this, because I don't think we could be human and not experience when we're talking with somebody and somebody is talking and we probably have a million things going on in our heads and we're not really listening. We may nod and pretend that we're listening, but we're really not listening. So what dialogue does, it helps us to clarify. How many times does your loved one, your spouse, your husband, your wife will say something and you heard them totally different than what the meaning of what they said, and then you'll react. So dialogue helps us to slow down, helps us to get the other person, and it can break that polarization. We think that we're totally on different sides of the spectrum, but it can break that down. So dialogue, it's a slow process. It's not something that happens fast. That's what I want to share first of all. That's what dialogue is. How can it benefit your relationship? I pretty much have already told you that it can help you connect, it can help you grow, help you be more self-aware. And when we're self-aware and we grow, we're more emotionally safe ourselves. We are designed to grow. And as a Christian, I believe we're designed by God to grow and to be more aware. So what does this dialogue look like? Maybe in another video I will share with you, and I don't know if my husband will do this, but maybe someone else will demonstrate what dialogue looks like. Basically, it's a speaker-listener technique. One person decides to be speaker, and the other person decides to be listener. Now, if you're a speaker, you're going to be speaking about yourself. You're going to be using I statements. And you're going to be, and this is something that we learn more in my office, and then I'm going to be given a workshop later, but we're going to be learning on how to speak from your own perspective and not use you statements. You want to, as much as you possibly can, avoid you statements. Instead of saying, you were angry when whatever it was, you're instead going to say, I felt diminished, or I felt intimidated when you did such and so. So actually, to learn dialogue, it's best to do it when you're not on a hot topic. It's best to do it on a very benign topic. And so you might want to say, yeah, I felt really good when you cleaned up the kitchen. That made me feel good. And then the other person basically would mirror that person back. The listener is going to put everything away in their perspective, and they're just basically going to say, so what I heard you say is that you felt good when I cleaned up the kitchen. And so listeners trained to just take deep breaths, and whatever is triggered in the listener that speaker may say, it's going to go in this imaginary parking garage. That's why you slow things down, and you have this parking garage behind your head that's empty. You take a deep breath and you put that in the garage, and you just hold it there, and you stay in the listener mode until the full dialogue is finished. So you mirror each other back, and you take turns doing that. Another part to dialogue, the second part, is to validate. Basically, this is saying, well, that makes sense because thus and so. Yeah, I've felt that way too before. And so that's what validating is. That's what listener does for speaker. Listener will tell speaker, yeah, that makes sense because I've felt that too in that very same situation. And then the last part to dialogue is the empathy. You can imagine how this person must feel. Brené Brown has some awesome videos and TED Talks on empathy. And if you were to Google on YouTube or on Google sympathy versus empathy and come up with Brené Brown's YouTube video, that's an awesome one that you will understand what I'm talking about when I encourage listener. As listener, we are to empathize with that other person rather than try to control them or minimize them. So those are things that I think are helpful. Again, I think it would help probably if you were interested, perhaps for me to demonstrate this. Have an attitude that everybody makes sense. And when you have that kind of attitude, then you can seek to understand rather than fighting to get your point of view across. I share all this because I did want to tell you also that I'm doing a workshop, and it's at the Center for Mindful Living. They're on Monday nights starting May the 1st, and it goes through May 22nd, and they're 4 weeks in a row. This is going to be more of this, but it's not just teaching about dialogue. We're actually probably 75%, maybe more of the group work that we do is going to be experiential. So you're going to be learning hands-on how to do dialogue, and then I'll also explain about what communologue is. So dialogue between two people and making that space emotionally safe. Communologue is with more than two. You can do it with your family, and it's a way, again, to pay attention so that everyone feels heard and understood. You keep it to one topic at a time. That's what I wanted to tell you also about dialogue, just keeping it at one topic at a time, because it's so easy, isn't it, to get off on tangents, and then our thoughts are like spider webs. I hope this is helpful. Check out the Center for Mindful Living. That is where the information for it's called Dialogue for Wellbeing. How to Hold the Tension of Others' Differences is the name of my workshop. It's going to be 4 weeks. I'm so excited about sharing this information. There is a deadline of early bird rate, April the 19th. So if you are interested, please check it out. If you can't find it, it's centerformindfulliving.org, and just look for Dialogue for Wellbeing, and just keep clicking until you get to the registration. If you can't find it that way, you can also look on my website, judycounselor.com. I hope this is helpful to you, and I look forward to hearing back. Please, I didn't get any notices, I don't think, and this is, oh, you know what? It says I'm supposed to swipe to see if who is here, reveal comments and reactions. I've missed that. So if you made a comment or a reaction, please forgive me on that. This is my first time to do this, so I look forward to connecting with you more. Thanks for making it easy for me to do this. And I hope that these tips on dialogue are helpful. Remember, we don't want to power over another person. When you're in the listener mode, you're just going to take deep breaths and hold back reactions. When you're in the speaker mode, you're going to make sure that you speak in I statements from your perspective and not in a judgmental way. And I hope that that's helpful, and I want to hear from you more. So thanks so much for joining me. Okay? Bye-bye.